launchers for the Mac. It didn't matter if you'd never heard them. They are so useful that you do actually need one. But now it also doesn't matter if you'd never heard of them at all in any way and don't care, because you're getting one. Or rather, your Mac had one already, really, to be fair. It's called Spotlight. The thing is that Apple has just radically improved it. Nobody expected this. Nobody even really imagined it. I mean, Spotlight's been good for so long, but now Spotlight has improved so much that for the first time, it is actually pretty much on a par with the various third-party rivals. Or you see me hesitate. At least it is for a lot of people, maybe even most, but true, definitely not all. Now, you can't get that new Spotlight until macOS Tahoe comes out around September or conceivably October. But here's what it does when you get it. Here's what all the other main launchers do, and exactly why these things they're just built for writers. Hello, I'm William Gallagher, and this is 58 Keys, which, as ever, as always, is for writers. Writers like you and me who use and who write on Macs and iPhones and iPads and Apple Vision, I don't know, one of those things. Except the Monday videos, they're for all writers, even the paper and pencil crowd, crazy people. And Fridays are all about screenplays, which I admit is an absolute obsession of mine, right? Just one of the absolute obsessions. Do subscribe, you get all of this, and we have so much to talk about all the time. And this, just now, it's about the fine differences, practically invisible fine differences in this mandatory class of Mac apps called launchers. And I'm not kidding with that word mandatory there. For years, and anyone who has ever used one of these launchers has said, you know, Apple should do something like this. This should be on every Mac. Apple should do something this good. And now it has. Apple's launcher is called Spotlight, and the main rivals in alphabetical order are, I've got to get that right in my head, sorry, Alfred 5, Launch Bar 6 and Raycast. They all do the same thing, which is that it doesn't sound like much, but they're a fast way to open applications on your Mac. They're a quick way to find documents, fast way to search online, and all sorts of other things. But they do all the same things, and they all start the same way. You press a keystroke. I mean, it's command space. Look at my hands doing it automatically. You do that, and you get a bar on the screen like that one, and you start typing into it. It's possibly that typing part that I think makes this most for us as writers, because without taking your hands off the keyboard, you can be skipping to another app, you can be tracking down some research information, or you could be running a Mac shortcut that does all of that, whilst also emailing a random excuse to your editor for why you're late because you're playing with your Mac, I imagine. But then there's also this, without which I don't believe I could run my writing business unless I was a lot more patient than I am, or had a lot more time than I do. Clipboard history. Just now, right, a minute before we started talking, I was doing this article where, how to explain it? So I had to take the first paragraph, right, and turn it into a tweet that would eventually promote the article. Fine, you know, copy, paste, done. Only didn't really like the tweet, and actually in the end I said, no, I didn't like the paragraph either. I preferred one I'd written earlier. So with the clipboard history on my Mac, I just pasted that old one in again. Didn't rewrite it, didn't retype it, didn't even really fully remember it. I just, it was that one, wasn't it? Pasted it. Plus, whenever I finish any article, any chapter, I select it all, copy it, and I know, without me doing anything else, I know that if something goes wrong tomorrow, now, next week, whenever, I can paste a lot back in straight away. Now, any one of these 4 apps I mentioned can do any one of these things to an extent. Any one of these apps actually does all of these things, but in slightly different ways, slightly different degrees. The difference, though, is all the difference. What they can do, what they can't, how far they go with, say, the clipboard history. How many steps do you have to go through to do something, to get something? So, if you didn't already, you now know what a launcher is, and you know a better Spotlight is coming. There does still remain which of these launchers is right for you, and there is a good, if slightly awkward answer, which is you can get any of them. You can choose any of them, Spotlight, Alfred, Launchbar, Raycast, and you will almost certainly be happy with it. I hesitated, you'll see why in a minute. The thing, out of all that, you're going to choose Apple's own Spotlight. I mean, or at least you will if you've never used any of these before. And of course you're going to. I mean, Spotlight was good before. It was already handy and actually rather good at many, many things. But now it is this superbly improved one. Plus, it's going to be right there on your Mac, or it will be later on in the year, rather than being this extra that you have to go find and pay for. Each of the other three rivals, I must say this, does have at least a decent free trial and actually often a rather generous free version forever. But they're so good, once you're hooked on them, you will actually want to pay the developers some cash. I'm not going to say send them a Valentine's card, but cash, yes. So actually, because prices are decided, let me tell you prices first, so you can look at that and think, yeah, no, whether or not to carry on listening to me. Spotlight costs nothing, right? Okay, that one's easy to remember. Alfred 5 is a free app, but has a paid extra called the Power Pack, which is really good and costs £34. And actually, for once, the price is in pounds sterling. It's because the makers of Alfred 5 are based, split here in the UK and in Portugal. Works out to around $45. Launchbar 6 gives you a 30-day trial, and then the makers say you can carry on using it anyway, except that it will sometimes nudge you to buy. What's the phrase the makers used? It just occasionally invites you to take a short break, like allowing you to breathe and relax. That was line. You know it will ask you to breathe and relax when you're on a deadline and under pressure. So to buy Launchbar 6 and avoid that, Launchbar 6 costs €35. That's about £30 or around $40. And then there's Raycast. This is another one that has a free version, which is actually very generous. I mean, with both Raycast and Alfred, you could just use the free edition forever. They're that good. Maybe Spotlight changes that, but they're good. And otherwise, Raycast is a subscription app. Two versions, either $8 or $16 per month. And the difference there is that Raycast connects with a lot of AI services, if you wish it to, and you get more of them when you pay more. Okay. Anyway, go for any of these or the new Spotlight and you will be fine. Probably so much so, in fact, that you won't just be happy with your purchase, you'll become incredibly biased towards whichever app you pick, as people do. This is practically tribal, but take that as a positive. Take it as meaning that all of these launchers are so very good. Although tribal, I mean tribal over a Mac app, it's a funny world. I want to tell you though, but I want to make sure you know that because I've seen very many videos about launchers where the presenter is so obviously biased towards the one they happen to use themselves that you can just instantaneously spot where their honest review is going to go. I mean, fair enough, that word though, truly, writers, we concentrate on words. You see the word honest in a YouTube title? Yeah, don't bother watching. Honest. But that's not to mean that I think I am in some way better, that I am not also biased to the one I've got, except I think I have a kind of overruling bias, which is towards anything that helps you and me as writers. So I'll tell you right now, I have been using Alfred for very many years. But while it has features that others don't, and while I like it very, very much, I think Raycast right now is slicker and more modern. I think Raycast feels quicker overall. And also, this isn't a big a deal as it sounds, but Raycast has an iPhone version sort of, and neither Alfred nor Launchbar do. Before Apple revealed the new Spotlight, my recommendation was going to be that you should probably try Raycast first. And my own position was that actually I'm now using both Raycast and Alfred. Slightly different things. Nothing to stop using both, or actually all of them. You know, try to fit in some writing in between. Now that Apple has shown us Spotlight's improvements, my recommendation has shifted. My recommendation is that you start with Spotlight and then you try Raycast later. If you now stick with me for a little while, I want to show you what these rival third-party launchers do that Spotlight doesn't. But actually, I'm afraid for speed, I'm also going to take one launcher out of the picture completely. It's just off the table. Sorry, Launchbar 6. And very sorry to you if you already have Launchbar 6 and you're a fan. It's just, I've used launch apps of all types for a couple of decades now, and I have used Launchbar. I used it a lot in a previous version, but this time out, trying it out to see what had been added, what was I missing, should I go back to it, what could I tell you about it? I found Launchbar 6 exasperating, and I know that must be me, but I'm also me with Alfred, Raycast and Spotlight, and those three, they're each a pleasure. So Launchbar 6 is out, and I feel guilty, but what's that great Jane Austen line? Further apology would be absurd. Ask me about Launchbar 6 and I'll tell you, but here's what makes the rest of them so good for us. I actually forgot this thing earlier. When I was summarising what these launchers do, you can also do maths in a launcher, any of them. Tap the keystroke, command space, whatever it is, type in 99 asterisk 5. You have to use an asterisk, it's a thing. And there's your answer, 99 times 5. Plus, if you then press Command C to copy the answer, well, you can go paste it into anything you like, including actually back into another launch bar and make more calculations. Yeah. But speaking of pasting right, I mentioned quite excessively keenly clipboard managers. It has taken Apple 30 years to add a clipboard manager to the Mac in Spotlight, and I am not going to say that they should have done it sooner. I'm going to say that they should please do it to the iPad as well. Please do that next. Yeah. All clipboard managers, they work exactly the same way, and all of them are supremely useful. You copy something like you ever did, you then paste it somewhere, yeah, like normal. But then, like I said earlier with that tweet example, you decide something you copied 5 minutes ago. That's what you really need. Or someone asks you, what was that website address that you were going on about at lunch yesterday, and you know you copied it out just before lunch. So, or there's that line from your publisher that you thought you dealt with a month ago, and now you need to dig it out and paste it into like your to-do app and get it done really, really quickly. I'm not projecting, but I could go on. Just did. You find whatever it is you copied whenever it was, you find it very quickly and you paste it in anywhere you like. You paste it as if it were the very last thing you copied, all normal and straight, except that example of the one from lunchtime yesterday, or whatever it was. Well, Alfred and Raycast, yeah, dull, easy. Spotlight, no. The new Spotlight wipes your clipboard history after 8 hours. It gives us a clipboard history and then it wipes it. It's a security thing, except it really shouldn't be. Apple's reasoning, and actually the first time you run it, it even warns you about this. The first time you use Spotlight's new clipboard history, it tells you that you could have sensitive information on there. So a password you copied out of the Passwords app or something, or from an email that somebody sent you, whatever, that could be in your clipboard history. Of course it could, yes. And true, anyone who could get to your Mac could, in theory, get to that password. I mean, if they could physically get to your Mac, if they could unlock your device, they could do all of these things. Yes, so it is true. And therefore, wiping the clipboard history after a time is good, but neither Raycast nor Alfred have this problem at all. With those, you can copy a password fine, you can paste it fine, but they won't retain it in the memory for very long. You can have your clipboard going back more than 8 hours. The amount varies. There are differences in the different apps, and also settings. You choose what you want, but you can have it going back weeks and still not be concerned about some password knocking about 3 weeks ago in there, sticking around anywhere. Hopefully this is something that Spotlight will fix before the end of the current beta test of macOS Tahoe, but for the moment, Spotlight wins for having a clipboard history at all, but it loses because that clipboard history is not as good as either of its rivals, Alfred and Raycast. And actually, as good as Raycast is, this is an area where Alfred is the best. Follow. To use Raycast's clipboard manager, right, well, you have to open Raycast as normal, command space, whatever you choose, and then either select the clipboard history if it happens to be already listed on the screen, or start typing the words clipboard history, and before you get very far, there it is. You select it, you hit return, away off you pop. You can do exactly the same in Alfred, but you can also just have an entirely separate keystroke that takes you directly into its clipboard manager. And you can merge items that you copy. For example, I quite often, there's a certain job where I have to copy the title of a document and then its author, maybe also the link if it's online, and typically the summary paragraph, the abstract, maybe one or two lines later in a document, a quote from later on. With Alfred, I can copy, and then paste all of them into a document in one go. Similarly, how to explain this? Raycast works only in Raycast itself. You always have to open it before you can do things. With Alfred, similar thing. It's not like another keystroke, another feature, but you can select a document on your Mac or a whole set of documents, and then actually with another keystroke, got to remember all of these, kind of scoop them up, ready for you to use Alfred to do something with them all. Use Alfred to email the lot to somebody as attachments, for instance. And you can do a thing called add file to buffer. When you've done this to a document or a set of documents, then from now on, every time you open Alfred to do something, those documents are just waiting there for you, ready to be used. Or not, you don't have to, they're just there. So regularly used files, have them waiting for you. I used to think, right, that the only thing that would make this feature better would be if you could, the thing about scooping up a couple of documents, if you could scoop them up and then email them as attachment to someone without opening the email app. Because, well, the moment I open email, I see what's new, I see what's there, and I see what's pressing on my mind suddenly, and my focus is gone. I'm off having to reply to people. Alfred can't do that. Raycast can't do it. But now, Spotlight can. Because Spotlight has also added another kind of feature that used to be exclusive to these rivals. They're not quite the same, but similar. Alfred called them workflows, Raycast calls them extensions, Spotlight calls them actions. But in each case, they are things that you can get your launcher app to do for you on your Mac, and maybe a whole series of them. For Raycast, for example, I have an extension. It lets me send a query off to perplexity.ai to answer. Okay. With Alfred, I have a workflow that if I just bring up Alfred and type the letters T and Z, or even Z, and then a space, I'll get a list of times in various cities around the world, and I use that a lot in my work. Now in Spotlight, though, I can use an action that lets me compose and address an email, then send it off without my leaving Spotlight or opening the Mail app. It's a little limited, but it can do all of that. I would have said, by the way, that Raycast extensions, right, are better than workflows, and the two of them are more powerful than Spotlight's actions, but it is a fine line. You can create any of these things yourself, or more often, you can use ones already made, either by the developers themselves, the developers of those apps, or other users in their extremely vibrant and active communities online. But there's more. I said no one expected Apple to improve Spotlight this much, actually at all, really. I mean, Spotlight was already good. I have often recommended it before. It just wasn't as good as the rivals. And now, for the most part, for most people, most or at least much of the time, yeah, it is. It's equal, or will be when it's out later this year. But I also didn't expect this. Take a look at this. Actually, it's my Stream Deck, and I added a Spotlight button, really just to try it out. Why not? I don't have a button for Alfred or Raycast. I just my fingers automatically go to the keyboard shortcut to launch them. Actually, why not? Now I think of it, I might as well. Let's add buttons for these. I would say that was pretty pointless, really, unless, like me, you use two or more of these launchers and you lose a bit of track over which keyboard shortcut, which one's open by command space, which one is the other one. And also, obviously, I've got to say, you don't need a Stream Deck at all. They're just very nice to have. So I'm not saying go buy one. Go buy an expensive Stream Deck to use the free launcher. I'm saying with surprise that I keep using one particular part of Spotlight because it's on the button. And it's Spotlight Actions that I use. The normal way to get the Spotlight Actions is to tap Command Space or any other keyboard shortcut you choose, And then either just move your mouse a little bit and click on this third blob that appears, or press Command 3. Command 3, this is how you do that thing of sending an email without opening mail, for example. Or this is how you can send a message, well, actually pretty much in the same way. And I said with Alfred and Raycast, you can create these extensions or workflows that do certain sets of things. They do more sets of things. They can keep going with it. You can't do that with Spotlight, but what you can do is you can use any of the hundreds of actions available. I mean, actually, I say hundreds, the exact number depends on your Mac and what applications you've got. But if an app allows it to, Spotlight can use these things. It can tap into a particular feature from that app and make it available to you as a quick action. So I found myself setting a focus mode just by bringing up Spotlight actions, typing focus, and then choosing from the list, or timers. Actually, if I need to get something done in the next half hour, whatever, well, I'll start a timer now directly from Spotlight Actions and just get on with it. Get on with what I need to write. So previously, I would launch the clock app or I'd launch a show. I mean, it's hardly anything, but it helps. In just a few weeks, actually, I've forgotten exactly the phrase you need to type into Spotlight to get a timer instead of, for example, launching the clock or launching the timing app I sometimes use. But I've forgotten it in part because I no longer need to remember it. I only need to remember the letters S and T. S and T, this is it sounds like Sesame Street, and that's not a bad thing to sound like, but S and T on my Mac are the quick keys in Spotlight that set the timer going. You can pick any of the hundreds of possible Spotlight quick actions and choose a couple of letters that will start it running for you even quicker, I suppose. So that's actually very similar to that T and Z workflow I have in Alfred, but Apple lets you assign these letters to this potentially staggering number of possible actions without you doing at least some work creating Alfred workflows or Raycast extensions. Neither of those can do this. I mean, they can do it, but it's much more fiddly. So Spotlight here is a genuine contender for the best launcher. It is so quick for these. Spotlight's just really also come at a time when I think the hard decision was between Alfred and Raycast. Raycast is the newest of all of the rivals, and it feels like it. It looks like it. Raycast looks and feels modern. It also looks and feels fast, even kind of snappy. That's the word. You fly through Raycast, and it is brilliant. And it is often how the app gets updated with new features that I think is particularly impressive, like constantly something new. These new features, for example, include the access to AI that I mentioned and very many different versions of it. Type a question, press tab, and away off you go. There are also AI features in the iPhone and iPad versions of Raycast, and Raycast is, like I say, the only one of these launchers. Well, there is kind of Spotlight, but the only third-party one to have a version for those devices. But don't get excited. Because of the way iOS and iPadOS work, no one, except Apple, can make a launcher for the iPhone or the iPad, or at least not one that is remotely as useful as these are on the Mac. So what Raycast has done so far is give you some ability to have quick links. For example, I made one that was I tap a button to have Raycast jump to Apple Music for me and straight into the heavy rotation playlist. It's not like it saves much time, doesn't save many steps, but it saves some, and you don't think about it, just press the button and away off it goes. Speaking of steps, right, my only criticism of Raycast, and this might just be me, is I have to keep stopping to think how to move back through levels of Raycast. So you've typed a document name, for example, and then you've gone into the search file section, and now you want to come back out and type another document name, search for a different file somewhere. Okay, so you've typed it, you press escape, you move up a level, which is fine, but quite often I'll go into Raycast, it's showing me something that I last did there and I want to start fresh, so I automatically press escape and Raycast closes on me. You have to remember sometimes to press Command Escape, or so it seems to me. Sometimes. I mean, not only is this the tiniest of things, not only if you are a Raycast user already, you are now throwing a glance at the sky about me, But also, Raycast, I think, is exceptionally good at taking you through how to use it. For some reason, I keep tripping up on that one particular thing, but otherwise, it's superb. Nonetheless, at the moment, I am using the free version of Raycast. I'm continuing to use Alfred, and I'm finding more and more that I'm using the new Spotlight. Using Spotlight again. Didn't expect that. The thing is, right, once you've used any of these, you never want to go back. And now, because of how Apple has done this great improvement to Spotlight, there's no need to go back. It's there. That was the best part, I thought, for me, of this year's Apple's WWDC announcements. Well, Spotlight improvements and iPad OS changes, those were great too. But the new Spotlight will introduce more people to how incredibly useful launchers are. Links to Alfred, Raycast, and even actually Launchbar 6 are in the description. Spotlight's coming your way anyway. It's coming to a Mac near you later this year. But in the meantime, that's it for this edition of 58 Keys. Do remember the 58 Keys writing workshop videos that come out every Monday, and also the script cut ones that come out every Friday. But otherwise, for now, thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourself. Write more, okay? And I'll see you soon.